Hello, this is Ed Rigsbee. I'm the Executive Director of Cigar Peg Philanthropy Through Fun. We are the organization that hosts the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame. And as many of you know, the speakers that showcase become nominees for the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame. And at the end of this year, everybody, all of you association executives that registered to participate in as attendees in this showcase, you will get a vote. You'll get an email vote. It will be email specific, and you can choose who are going to be the 2023 nominees. So let's start out. We got two speakers today, maybe three. We're kind of wondering what's going on with some of the people, but again, let's start with Kricket Harrison. She speaks on leadership. Kricket is an expert on first-class leadership, drawing upon her extensive experience in the travel and tourism industry, with over 25 years in the business, including 4 airlines, 2 travel agencies, and multiple outside sales companies. Kricket understands the dynamics of leading consistently during changing teams. First-class leadership is not just a title, it's a mindset. Through tailored programs, workshops, and coaching sessions, Kricket equips leaders with the necessary skills to inspire, influence, and innovate. From mastering effective communication to fostering a culture of collaboration among teams, her comprehensive approach helps leaders engage their workforce and consistently achieve remarkable outcomes. Joining us from Atlanta, Georgia, please welcome Kricket Harrison.
One of my favorite things to do when I'm traveling is people watch. If you ever want a lesson in human behavior and what to do and maybe what not to do, all you've got to do is spend some time at the airport. We see every emotion possible when people come through. We see joy and excitement and laughter and anticipation of phenomenal trips ahead. And we see frustration and sadness and anger and just downright dismay. And that's just in the TSA pre-check line in Atlanta. Traveling is not for the faint of heart, and more people come through in mass quantities. If you traveled lately, you know there's more people traveling now than ever before. The interesting thing, though, is that airports are actually designed to move people through the airport in a rather logical way. But our brains don't see it that way when there's a crowd. Well over 100 years ago, the moving sidewalk was invented. 18 something. It's been a long time that it's been around, because even back then they knew that when chaos ensued in people, that decisions couldn't be made. When they were too distracted, they couldn't move forward with what they were supposed to do. Now, this moving sidewalk was actually called a travelator. So I don't know about you, but I love that term. That's really cool. I'm going to call it a travelator from here on out. And the travelator was designed to reduce overwhelm and chaos and help people move forward in their process. Now, you've probably seen the moving sidewalks, and you may or may not use them. There was one particular instance I was in where I had torn my calf muscle. I do not recommend this. It is the most frustrating injury, because while you have to walk on your leg with no assistance, you can't walk on your leg without assistance. But using assistance damages the muscle. So here I am trying to get through the airport, and I come across the travelator. Oh, thank goodness, I can rest my leg. I'm balanced, I'm pulling my suitcase. Being able to rest was a godsend for me in that moment. The family in front of me, stroller, luggage, I didn't know if they had been on an international trip or not, but I could tell those parents were done. They were wiped out, and they were using the travelator to give them time to breathe, to regroup, to catch up, and to keep the kids contained. Now, you may notice that travelators don't move really fast if you're not walking on them. In fact, they move about half the pace of the average airport traveler. So while you're moving slower, if you do walk on it, you will feel like and move forward faster. It's not a huge amount, but in our brains, it makes a difference. So I'm standing there on the right, waiting, moving forward, and this family slowly approaches, and they're the ones walking. And you know how they kind of look at you like, ha, yeah, I'm going faster than you. Well, sure enough, this young little boy looks up, and you have to love kids because they speak their mind. And he says, Dad, why aren't we on that thing? Why aren't we moving like that? And the dad says, well, that's for people who need help or need assistance, and we can walk just fine. We need the exercise. And I'm thinking to myself, Betty, if you only knew what I was going through, because so often we don't know what people are going through. And the little boy says, but Dad, look at that guy. It's like he's flying. He's going so fast. And sure enough, right as the little boy says this, I hear this, excuse me, on your left, coming through. And this man comes barreling through. Suitcase, briefcase. And I'm thinking, he's in a hurry. And the little boy says, Dad, he's so fast. And now they're a little in front of me. And I hear the dad say, well, he obviously has to be someplace. He's either catching a flight or catching a ride. And as the gentleman approaches the end of the moving sidewalk or our travelator, there's usually a gap in between the two before you get on the next one. This man comes running up, jumps off, makes a sharp left turn and heads straight for the men's room. And it dawned on me in that moment, never assume you know someone's motivation for why or how they're moving. The key is that they're moving. You know, sometimes when you're leading teams in these chaotic environments, especially when you're in the world of something like hospitality, tourism, even in the medical field, franchises, when your teams are changing constantly, you often feel like you're in the chaos. And just one person stopping to figure it all out can block the whole system. As leaders, it's our job to make sure that we understand the motivation of the people on our team and what's moving them forward and what pace they need to be at. See, the most important thing is to make sure that they're at a pace that they can sustain that will indeed move the team forward. I believe in first-class leadership because, you know, there's nothing harder than being in an environment where problems need to be solved now. We don't often have time to wait hours, days, because the work we do happens in a fast-paced and sometimes stressful environment. When you understand how to motivate people, and I don't just mean rah, rah, let's go, let's get going. If you understand why they're moving at such a fast pace and what's important to them and where they really need to get to, then you'll have a much better opportunity to motivate that team to work together and to reach that goal without incident or lack in customer service. I'm Kricket Harrison, and I look forward to talking to you about helping your team live a first-class life.
Thank you, Kricket. Hey, every time I'm at the airport and I go on the people mover or the electric sidewalk or whatever it's going to be called, I'm going to be thinking about a travelator. Thank you very much. So let's move on to Bryce Austin. Now, Bryce, his topic is, well, you might want to call it cybersecurity or you might want to call it technology. And I've heard Bryce present a number of times. He even presented for my association CEO group about a year ago. So Bryce Austin started his technology career on a Commodore 64 computer. I don't really know what that is, but maybe somebody does. And a cassette tape drive. Today, he is a leading voice in technology and cybersecurity. Bryce has more than 20 years of cybersecurity leadership experience and is the named Chief Information Officer, or CISO, for many companies, including one listed on the S&P 500. Bryce speaks to audiences worldwide on how to stay safe from cyber criminals. The number one goal of his presentation is for you to learn how to bring your cybersecurity risk to a level that is secure enough for you. His best-selling book is titled Secure Enough: 20 Questions on Cybersecurity for Business Owners and Executives. Now, in his free time, Bryce is a high-speed automotive racer and coach. He has driven cars from a 65 horsepower Mini Cooper to a 650 horsepower Porsche 911 Turbo. I want to drive one of those. He has had over 100 students, none of whom have died while under his instructions. Awesome. I give you Bryce Austin.
Thank you so much, Ed. I appreciate it. I was in the room when it happened. I was physically in the room. It was November 28th, 2013, and I was working my first ever Black Thursday at Target Corporation. We were going to be opening the stores at 3 p.m. in different time zones, and my team was responsible for managing the new technology programs that would touch the stores themselves, things that would change the team member experience, the customer experience. Some things were mundane, new Wi-Fi systems, new scales in the deli, but some were at the future of retail, things like buy online at target.com and then pick up your merchandise in a store. That's called flexible fulfillment. Nowadays, many companies do it, but at the time, this was cutting edge stuff. And we were launching flexible fulfillment on Black Thursday, 2013. We left that day after having a successful launch, successful store openings, no significant technology issues, with high fives and pats on the back and the knowledge of a job well done, and me thinking I had a long and prosperous career at Target Corporation. Because we didn't know that in that room, while we were working, a switch had been flipped. It was a switch that began exfiltrating credit card numbers out of the Target cash registers at a rate of millions per hour. It was a switch that had been placed before I even started at the company, but we didn't know. Well, a couple of weeks later, when the FBI and the Secret Service came knocking on the door, then we knew. We had a much better idea after that. And a few days later, when Brian Krebs broke the story to the world, then everyone knew. I actually had a chance to meet him a number of years ago. We were both speaking at the same conference, and he talked about how he toiled in obscurity as a journalist until he broke the Target story, and then his world exploded. Funny, mine too. I could relate to that very directly, having your entire world explode after this news story came to light. Now, I wasn't in cybersecurity at the time. I had been for years and years prior in the financial services space, but I hadn't at Target. And when you're in the wake of what looks like $1 billion cybersecurity breach, how important are the new whiz-bang programs that will touch the stores themselves? They aren't important at all. I had a team of over 200, and I was able to save almost half of them to try to find them other spots in the company to continue to have a contribution. But over 100 people on that team and myself were part of the 2,000 people laid off in 2014, primarily as a result of the breach. And I didn't like it. I wasn't a fan. I went from bonus checks to unemployment checks, and I wanted to understand why. So I decided to dig into it, and I realized that the problems that we had were solvable. They just weren't understood by senior leaders at Target, so they didn't make the decisions in retrospect they should have to bring the cybersecurity risk to a level that would have been secure enough for the company. And they aren't alone. CNA Financial is one of the largest insurance companies on the planet, and they hold the ring for having paid the largest ransomware demand in the history of the world, $40 million paid by an insurance company that offers cybersecurity liability policies. So if I ever want my two kids to know the definition of irony, I just send them to one of these articles online and they can draw their own conclusions. But it isn't just a company problem. OPM stands for the Office of Personnel Management. This is the US government's HR department. They were hacked allegedly by the Chinese in 2015. And regrettably, this was likely a loss of life event because there were records in those databases of anyone that had received funds from the US government, including people that we may have been using in an espionage or spy capacity. And when those foreign governments know that someone on their side is working for us, that's how people disappear. Cybersecurity is very serious. It's an important issue, and we have a problem around it. And these problems have long, long tails. Even though this happened in 2015, the class action lawsuit about it was just settled several months ago. We have a problem. And the problem starts with people, process, and technology. I wanted to focus on the people. So I wrote a book called Secure Enough, 20 Questions on Cybersecurity for Business Owners and Executives. I encourage you to buy it often and in large quantity. In full transparency, a free e-copy of the book is normally something we offer to all audiences when I'm lucky enough to have the chance to present to them. And we have a large handful of these to pass out to audience members that ask good questions or VIPs or what have you. So let's talk a little bit about risk. What are the things that we can do with a risk? Not just cybersecurity, but any risk. There are three things. All of them are acceptable. One, I can understand a risk and say that risk is secure enough for me. I'm going to move forward. When I fly all around the globe, I do not inspect the airplanes myself. I allow the FAA and Delta to take care of that, and they haven't let me down yet. Granted, I haven't taken a flight out of Moscow recently, but that's a whole other story. The other thing that we can do is see a risk and say this is not acceptable as is. We need to lower it to a level where it is acceptable. After the fifth or sixth Uber ride that I took where the person was not driving in a way that I felt safe, I started renting more cars and mitigated that risk down. The third thing that we can do is we can transfer that risk to somebody else via an insurance policy, via an outsourcing agreement that includes the transfer of liability for whatever that product or service is. What I don't want anyone in your association to do is stick their head in the sand and hope that nothing bad happens. And that's where a lot of us are right now when it comes to cybersecurity, because it's not an easy problem to understand. What we need to do is to make ourselves difficult to attack. Not perfect, not bulletproof, but difficult. So how do we do that? In the land of squirrels, the porcupine has a significant competitive advantage. Now, I would love to go into more detail about this, but it's going to require a longer presentation. But what I will say is that even though squirrels can run faster, even though they reproduce more quickly, porcupines have a very good set of defenses that do make them secure enough in their environment. And if we can mimic that in our cybersecurity space, the hawks circling overhead will find a squirrel and they will leave us alone because we're more grief than we're worth. We can talk about who these people are that are cyber criminal actors. Who is it that we are trying to defend ourselves against? Because in order to defeat the opponent, you must understand the opponent. Well, these are them. And often we hear about nation state level attacks because they're exciting and because they're flashy. And we have the SolarWinds Orion breach and the Move It breach. That typically isn't who we're up against. We're up against organized crime. We're up against that second to the top tier. That's where 90% of our cybersecurity threats come from. And we can go through the different avenues that they use to try to hack your company. They will typically start with a phishing attack, trying to get credentials. They will hop from system to system, looking for something theftable or something they can encrypt and ransom. They will try to scrape data that is useful to them, either to resell, or if it's credit card numbers to commit fraud, or if it's confidential information on your employees to pretend to be them. They will aggregate that data somewhere in your system, and they will work hard to try to get it out. If we can stop any one of those steps, we can stop the breach. And talking about how to do that is one of the core areas of any presentation that I'm fortunate enough to give. Ransomware. I mentioned what a big deal it is. My company does a fair amount of incident response. We will walk through some real world scenarios about how ransomware propagates, how it starts, how we get involved, what companies look like after one of these events has taken place, systems that are up, systems that are down, how we engage law enforcement, how we engage insurance companies, how we engage executives. We will talk about what these ransom notes and demands look like. Most people haven't ever seen a ransomware note before. They're not overly glamorous, but this is an example of a real world one where the initial demand was $8 million. This was our initial conversations with the cyber criminals, but they were willing to give us a discount to $5 million if we paid within 7. Wasn't that nice of them? There is no honor among thieves. We will talk about how you get out of situations like this. Sometimes you have to pay, sometimes you don't. If you have to pay, does the decryptor work or not? Well, we're going to show people what it's like to live through this. This is an actual video of us doing a decryption on an encrypted machine. And I was rather stunned at just what good technology the cyber criminals are using. Those boxes you see flipping around, those are all different processors on the server. It has 8 processors and it's using them in parallel. I have clients with ERP systems that can't do that. Why can't we get these criminals to use their powers for the bright side of the force? We will talk about law enforcement. We will talk about government agencies that we can partner with to try to keep ourselves safer. The FBI is often a good partner in these, and we've had flash alerts come out of my company where the FBI and I partnered to try to make something more publicly known so other people don't fall victim. Finally, we'll talk about remediation, the things that we can do to keep this from happening again if someone falls victim to it. But a lot of what I just talked about is reactive cybersecurity. How is it that you clean up after something has happened? What do you do after the milk has been spilled? Well, I like talking about proactive cybersecurity more, because proactive cybersecurity means you never had an event. It means you became a porcupine in a land of squirrels before things started. And as Ed was kind enough to mention, I am a weekend auto racer, started around the year 2000 and cut my teeth the way a lot of professionals do on the racetrack in 1994 Saturn. Please stop laughing. That's no good for my self-esteem. So after getting a real race car and moving on to things like endurance racing and sprint racing and such, I've had a lot of fun with it. And the physical security issues around the racetrack are well known. And we have problems. There are sometimes things you need to mitigate you didn't expect, like when you walk out of the trailer in the morning and your race car looks like that. Well, the race still goes on, and we didn't bring snow tires that day. So you have to figure out what to do. What we want to do with your audience is to show them some of the real world physical risks of auto racing and make parallels to the cyber risks that we see in front of us every day. They just aren't as obvious. We're going to go through actual on-track racing videos of near misses like this and the things that were seen that led up to this event, and how if you make the right moves, even doing a high-risk maneuver like taking your car off track is still the lowest risk thing you can do. And even though we lost several seconds, we lived to fight another day. We are going to talk about other videos where things weren't as obvious and they didn't make as much sense. And the reaction was not as good. Sometimes we still have to play the reactive game, but a proactive response beats a reactive one every single time. And we will bring those things to life in a larger presentation. These things are critical to me, because cybersecurity changed the ability for me to feed my family. I am thrilled and honored to have the opportunity to speak with you about some of the things that we can do to make sure that your associations stay secure enough. My name is Bryce Austin. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I appreciate it. Ed, back over to you.
Thank you, Bryce. I appreciate that. That was fascinating. Every time I hear you talk, I am scared you-know-whatless about my computer and everything else. Now, we have a little bit of a technical challenge because Dave Rosenberg has been trying to get on, but I guess maybe using the wrong link. So let me do this. I'm going to move into talk about Dale for just a minute, and after Dale, if Dave Rosenberg can get on, then we'll let him do his showcase. So Dale Irvin is already a inductee into the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame. He has an amazing ability that probably nobody else has. He calls himself the professional summarizer. So, now we finally get Dave on. Okay, so Dale, I'll tell you what, I'll go to Dave. It'll give you more to mock. And
thank you very much. I like the fact that you're hyping it in advance. That's very nice.
Yes. So okay, so now that we have Dave on, let me do Dave Rosenberg's introduction, and we'll let him do his showcase. When Dave was ordered to fly the first mission in support of Operation Desert Shield, he had less than 5 minutes notice. 3 minutes later, he catapulted off the flight deck of the USS Independence with an unfamiliar wingman by his side. A decorated combat veteran, Dave Rosenberg, has applied the lessons on accountability learned on that day to a successful business career. Today, he's going to share the secret of his systematic and disciplined approach to transforming your underperformers into overachievers who act as if their lives depend on them, even if only livelihoods do. Please help me welcome Dave Rosenberg.
My heart races as the world slows down around me. My brain is processing thousands of bits of information as I slowly contemplate what my next move would be. You'd think I was about to go on a search and rescue mission or some other high-risk mission. The truth couldn't be farther. I'm a lieutenant in the United States Navy, and I'm about to embark on an evolution that will change my life and have an effect on one Petty Officer Aaron McGill that will impact him as well. My job is a legal officer in Fighter Squadron 211. As a legal officer, I'm not a lawyer. I'm actually supposed to guide the commanding officer in matters of the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And part of that job is to evaluate reports on sailors who aren't doing very well. The challenge is, I got a report on one Aaron McGill that said he was derelict in his duties. Now that's fancy Navy talk. It just means he wasn't doing his job right. We've all had those underperformers like that. Somebody who isn't doing what they're supposed to do the way they're supposed to do it. The problem is, I've seen this many times in the military, is he had just joined the squadron. He'd only been in with us for a month, and he's already not measuring up. It's a slippery slope. If I don't get him to stand up, he's going to end up with a other than honorable discharge or worse. The 4 years that he's committed to for the Navy will be of waste, both to us and to himself, and the rest of his life, that's going to follow him around. The problem is I honestly don't know what to say. In the 3 years I had been in the military at this point, I had spent a year and a half in training, learning how to fight the F-14 Tomcat, the aircraft made famous by Top Gun. We'd spent countless hours understanding enemy weapon systems, our own weapon systems, tactics, how to utilize them. We had talked about everything except how to have that conversation with that underperformer to get them to do better. I thought about the experiences I had had in my career. I started working at 13 as a busboy in a Chinese restaurant. I grew up in a household where my dad was a full-time teacher and my mom had the most important job in the world. She was a stay-at-home mom. It meant we had a household with an abundance of love, but not a lot of money. So I had to work at the age of 13. I wasn't always a great worker. Like most of us out there, we have to learn how to do well. I had worked for bosses who screamed and yelled. I had worked for bosses who had brought me along. I knew how I reacted. But what do I say? What do I say to this young man? And I thought about my dad. My dad was a school teacher, and he taught in one of the worst neighborhoods in Philadelphia, a neighborhood called Kensington, a neighborhood that has generational poverty. And in spite of that history, most of his students did much better than average. They went on to college and to greater things. And he told me something really important. He said, son, if you want to talk to somebody and get them to do what you need them to do, what they need to do, it's not about telling them why it's important to them, because they could discount that. They can decide for themselves, no, that's not that important to me. You have to connect them with the big picture, how their actions affect others, how their actions will affect their friends, their families, their coworkers, whatever it might be. I was on to something. I was actually on to what I now call my accountability triangle. And this is just one of the 3 legs. It's mindset. That I realize as human beings, we have been around for over 300,000 years, and most of that time we depended on each other. And we have baked into our souls, into our DNA, through anthropology, through survival, that if we let the tribe down, people are going to be injured. When we want to talk to those underperformers, we need to paint that picture for them, how everyone else is dependent upon them, not how they're dependent on them. Sure, you want to tie into why it's important to them as well, but that's nowhere near as important as why other people are counting on them. And so I decided to have the conversation. I knew what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk to Petty Officer McGill about how his actions affected the rest of the squadron. Now, If you want to hear how this turned out, let's have a conversation about doing a program for your organization. Well, I'll reveal all three of the secrets to creating a culture of accountability, of how you can transform your underperformers into high achievers and how you can inspire them to do better. My name's Dave Rosenberg, and you can find me at lockedonleadership.com.
Thank you, Dave. That was awesome. I'll have to catch you off to the side and find out about Officer McGill. Now I'm going to have to go again and reintroduce Dale. Dale, you get 2 introductions. It's your lucky day. So as I said earlier, Dale is a inductee of the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame. Dale has a unique experience of coming to a meeting like yours and going around to all of the general sessions and taking notes and then sharing in a humorous way what people might have missed. And so what Dale has done is taken a few notes on what each of the speakers has said, and now he's going to share with you what perhaps you may have missed if you weren't paying attention. Dale, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ed. That was very lovely put. And as Ed said, that's what I do. I go to meetings either live or virtually, listen to all the speakers, attend all the events, and then throughout the day, once or twice, I'll give you a summary, a recap of what you should have learned, had you been paying attention, in the form of a comedy monologue that I've just written. That being said, here's what I learned today from the speakers we had. We started out with Kricket, who said that the best place to people watch is the airport. That's the second best place if you don't have a Walmart nearby. That's the best place. And she said, now there's more people traveling now than ever before, and I know because every one of them is in my way. Okay, they're all in my way, and I don't really care for that. Then she talked about the travelator, or it's also called the moving sidewalk, or in the supermarket they just call it a conveyor belt. And she said that if you're on there and you're walking, you're going about 1.5 times as fast as if you weren't on there. But if you turn around and walk the other way, you'll never get to your gate. So just so you know that. And then she said, don't assume everyone's motivation for why they're moving. I would say, just automatically assume they're going to the washroom, because there's really not much more urgent than that. So that would be my assumption. Next up, we heard from Bryce Austin on cybersecurity, and he said he started with a Commodore computer, and Ed said he didn't even know what that was. It was one step above the Radio Shack computer. Okay, that's how good it was. All right, then he said he had over 100 students and none of them died. Now, I don't know if those 100 students he was teaching how to race cars, or he was teaching them about cybersecurity. But either way, none of them died, which I think we could pretty much all claim. And then, the question I have, well, you're talking about cybersecurity and the whole thing at Target. And what I want to know is, if it's that important, should I not answer the Nigerian prince that keeps emailing me and offering me money? Because
No, you should not.
I should not do that. Okay.
You should not do that.
Let me write that down. Okay. And then, I don't know what this next thing was, a Chinese Captain America that makes people disappear. I don't know where that was. Apparently, it's a comic book he's working on. And then he gives away free ebooks at his programs, but it does cost a little bit if you want it autographed. So that's a little more. And finally, he said, don't stick your head in the sand. Obviously, you can't breathe and you get sand in your ears. And said that don't be a squirrel and worry about your nuts, be a porcupine. And you folks can finish that joke. All right. Then he continued. He said, organized crime is the biggest of the people we have to worry about out there. And I'm trying, in my mind, I'm trying to envision Tony Soprano bent over his laptop while getting a lap dance. I just can't really see that all going together. And he said that cyber criminals will offer you a discount, if you don't have the $12 billion. And on top of that, always ask for your senior discount, because most of the time, that is good. And then finally, he started his racing career in a 94, I think it was, Saturn. And he was at the time racing against people in walkers. And then finally, we heard from Dave Rosenberg, a decorated combat veteran. This man is the real life Tom Cruise. Okay, so if you ever wanted to know what Tom would look like if he were a real person, and he was a leading officer, which meant that all the officers walked into the room, he went first because he was the leading officer. And he started working at 13 years old as a busboy in a Chinese restaurant. He said he wasn't a great worker. He was 13. No, 13-year-olds are great workers. You got other stuff to worry about. And then, and how do you address the underperformer? Where he told us about the accountability triangle, but he only told us one part of it. And that's the mindset. And that is to tell them that everybody's depending on them and put a lot of pressure on them, and they'll work better that way. But the triangle, that's like, I've heard the analogy of the three-legged stool. And trust me, if you have a three-legged stool, get to a physician immediately. So I believe that was it for those three speakers. If you would like, visit what's on this side. Go to daleirvin.com and sign up for my Friday Funnies. Absolutely free every Friday. In your email, I will make you laugh about the odder stories in the week's news, both with a written version and about a 4.5-minute video that put a smile on your face. That being said, I'm turning it back over to Ed. Thank you for watching.
Thank you, Dale. And just to let everybody know, these videos will be individually up at the Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame.org website. Each of the speakers, you will have their contact information so you can get a hold of them directly and you can negotiate your best deal. We will have another showcase in October, and then the last one for the year will be December. And remember, tell your association exec friends, everybody that registers for any of the showcases will get a vote at the end of the year to see who will be the 2023 Virtual Speakers Hall of Fame inductees. Thank you very much for being here. Catch you next time.